In the mid-1980s, while the rest of America was excited about Wham and Madonna's The Virgin Tour, I was in the Army, and that's when I experienced my first run-in with the Ku Klux Klan. Hey, it's Dwayne Gundrum from Confusion is Contagious, the new name for my channel, which I think is kind of cool, where I examine my history and things that I find interesting. Today I'm going to talk to you about my adventure at Fort Knox, Kentucky, and my run-in with the infamous Ku Klux Klan. Like young people of this time, I kind of thought the Klan was a thing of the past, something you read about, from 100 years or so ago. But I was wrong. They were still around, and I was about to encounter them head to head. Now at this time I was stationed at Fort Knox. Fort Knox is kind of like one of the worst posts you can ever go to. At the time, there were two posts that were kind of competing with each other for worst posts you could possibly be at. Fort Hood, Texas was the other one. I think Fort Hood was actually winning because people were actually trying to commit suicide there. We had a few at Fort Knox, but not as many as Fort Hood. Anyway, because my unit and several other units there at Fort Knox weren't exactly the greatest units you could possibly be at. We had a lot of problems with different kinds of groups that people would form into. We had a lot of cliques that were just very dangerous, if you want to put it at that. Stuff that I think evolved into some of the bad things that we keep hearing about the military today. I happen to be one of those people that didn't really like that kind of a lifestyle. So there was one clique that I joined up with, and it was just a bunch of weightlifters. And so we would spend every off-duty day, weightlifting, arms and chest one day, legs the next day, that kind of thing goes. If you've ever done weightlifting, you get that idea. Anyway, I was there for a couple of years, and after not very long, I was getting a pretty decent physique. So was everybody else that was a weightlifter at that particular time. So one day, I decided to take a trip to Nashville, Tennessee, and we were going to see a particular band that was actually playing, a Western band, obviously, Nashville, Tennessee. So anyway, a bunch of my friends who were basically other weightlifters decided to go. Now, I should mention that a large segment of the weightlifters were African Americans. There were a lot of pretty much every weightlifter that I saw was not anybody that was ever going to get in trouble. And I'd say we were about a quarter of all the people that were actually in our unit. And plus a bunch of other people who were from other units that would just kind of hang out with us because it was just a safer, kinder environment. And plus, people generally didn't pick on weightlifters. I mean, let's be honest. So anyway, so we took this trip to Nashville, Tennessee. I was driving because I was the only one that actually had a car. I had a Mercury Capri, which could really fly if it needed to. Wasn't the greatest car in the world, but it was decent enough. And so in this trip, there were 4 other people in the car with me. The person in the passenger seat and then 3 people in the back. And so on this cross street in the middle of nowhere, we were in Tennessee at this time, a group of about 8 KKK members were on all of the corners of the streets. So there's 2 on each one. And so they were coming up to cars and giving them pamphlets and talking to them and, spreading their whatever they want to spread. And so 2 of them came up to my car, one on my side and one on the other side. The one on my side was actually a woman, and I was kind of surprised by this. I rolled down the window, and she was like, we're handing out pamphlets for the KKK. And I was like, okay. I was like, I don't really want one, but, one of my friends back there might want one. Keep in mind, all of my friends, everyone in the car, aside from me, was African American. And so the guy behind me was like, oh man, yeah, I want one because I'm thinking of joining. And so anyway, this woman like reaches in to give a pamphlet and suddenly realizes, you know, what she was seeing. And what I thought was kind of funny is if her face could turn any whiter, it did. And so she immediately like stepped back from the car and then like yelled at some of the other people, some of her comrades, you know, on the different corners. And then suddenly a whole bunch of people started chasing towards my car. And I was like, okay. So I just gunned the engine and just kind of went straight forward. And this one guy jumped in front of my car like he was going to stop me. And then after a while realized, and he was still far away from me, after a while he realized I was not slowing down and I was heading straight for him. And so he jumped out of the side and we just kept on going. So the guys in the back and the guy next to me were like, come on, turn around, turn around. And they wanted to fight him. And all I kept thinking to myself is we were in Tennessee, and if we would have fought them, and we would have won, I guarantee the police would have been on us within 15, 20 minutes. And whatever story they made up would be the narrative kind of going forward. So instead, I just turned them down and said, no, we're heading forward. We're going to a concert, and we plan to go there, and we're going there. And so that was my run-in with the Ku Klux Klan. I hadn't realized they were still around, but I certainly learned better.